And we are live. Hello everyone, welcome to the Unity 8 for desktop session. We are going to discuss the incoming work for the new desktop next cycle. So once you start the let me share some links on IRC to start.
So I'm not sure if you figured out who wants to start. Chris,
sure.
You're my far left side. I think one of the big gaps that we have in Unity 8 as a default desktop is support for legacy apps. You know, LibreOffice, Thunderbird, all those big app suites as a sort of the big example. Do you want to talk us a little bit through what the plans are and what the gaps are, and maybe how we address this as part of the Ubuntu Online Summit?
Sure. So yeah, we'll start with legacy apps. There's a sorry, I have an echo. Let me get that. Okay. Now I can concentrate. Yeah. So legacy apps are obviously going to be a big deal for Unity 8, particularly ones that have a ported mirror backend. So we have plans to support legacy X apps on this, and we actually have a full session on this tomorrow, but we'll touch upon it right now for a little bit. So what we want to do is have an LXD based container system, which we can install Debian packages into, and then that if they don't have a native mirror backend, they can talk to the XMirror client that can then talk to the mirror display server. So, you know, that's it at a very high level. If you want to join my meeting tomorrow about it, we'll get in a lot more detail about how we're going to fully implement this as of right now, which will probably change later, of course, but it'll give a good idea about what our plans are going forward. We obviously need some Unity 8 window management for that to work correctly. So we're hoping to get that done.
So
anything else to add? Yeah.
So without stealing too much thunder of the deep dive session, can you help us just manage expectations as to what you think is feasible in the next, say 3 months with more predictability, and maybe then 6 months with a more vague statement as to what you guys think will happen?
Right. So what we're going to plan to do is do a best effort on this. So some apps may work better than others. So in the next 3 months, but this cycle, what we hope to have is you have some funny things going on behind you, Ollie.
I have a helper.
Yeah. So what we want to do is be able to install the app in the container, have that all set up, and we want to have a simple GUI that allows you to set up one or more containers, be able to search the archive for different applications, install those applications. Basically, a running life cycle of the application running in Unity 8. Actually, in 1504, I made a little demo that could install and manage to run X apps in a Unity 8 session. It's a little bit out of date now, so it doesn't really work at this point. And then I think the plans and how it's going to be done will change. I think Ubuntu App Launch is going to handle a lot more of the getting it up and run than what I had done in my little demo. Does that answer that? What you're looking for, Ollie?
I think it does. So One comment though, when you say like best effort, um, you know,
Right. So
doesn't
you could
invoke
think
a lot
of
of.
it
Mhm.
like an OS 9 app running on OS X,
Yeah.
something like that. So it should run, might not feel exactly native or anything like that. My menus might be off a little bit, things like that. I mean,
Mm.
we hope that doesn't happen, but there might be some fringe app that just does not feel right on the system, and we're not going to put in months of effort to fix that. But what we want is at least to be usable by the end user on that.
Right. So, but best effort isn't necessarily like, confidence inspiring with our users. I think what we discussed, and I'm just curious, was like to have a prioritized list, the top 10 apps or whatever, that then we would tackle and make sure that those work,
Right.
very well. Is that still the plan? What's the conversation looking like between you guys and Bill's team?
Yeah. So Stephen was at the sprint, so I'm kind
Mhm.
of going on secondhand information from him, and
Mm.
unfortunately he couldn't be here today. Um, so how I understand it is like we're going to take the top 20 apps, if they are not natively working on Mirror, to make sure that they work very well on our the X Legacy X app infrastructure we're going to have set, and then basically any app that's not part of that list is should work, but it won't go through as much rigorous
Right.
testing and whatnot that we would do for those
Okay.
other apps.
Fair enough. Okay. Cool. Um, Getting help again. You want to say hi? All right. So then I think you said window management is sort of a big prerequisite that we need to put in place in order to accomplish that. What
Right.
about like all the fun IPC stuff, copy and paste, and those things?
Uh, we definitely want that to work. So a lot of it depends on the Mirror team and how and also how secure is it. I think there's been a lot of discussion that I know if I know the Mirror team wants it
Mhm.
to work, but we want to make sure that everything still remains secure in that
Okay.
for that. So I think there's definitely a plan to try to support that, but I don't really want to speak for other teams that
And
they're going to
but
be able to get it done.
you say that's the Mir team who owns that task.
I
The
do
Mir
believe
team.
so. I'm pretty sure.
So let's use this as a segue into the Mir Unity part. Jerry, Mike, anybody else want to talk to that?
Sure. Well, I can talk about copy, paste, drag, and drop. That may not be built into Mir explicitly itself. It may be a feature which is exported by the Content Hub. So the Content Hub will actually look after the transmission of data from one application to the other. Because there's a thought that Mir shouldn't be worrying about 9 types of data and streaming them between applications. That's not really something a display server needs to do. So it may not be on the Mir team's list of things to do, but it should be on somebody's. However, I'm not fully aware of a fully tied down specification of exactly how this is going to work. I was waiting. I think Thomas Voss has that on his plate.
Are we talking about making those work in the between Mir application or between Mir and XMir applications?
Between applications on Mir, and then that will
Yes.
naturally Mir and XMir applications.
Okay.
So it's not just between X Mir apps, right? It's generally any app to any app.
It will be any app. Since each XMir application is in its own container, there has to be something outside XMir to transmit the data between each instance.
Yeah.
And that should be the same thing as for any Mir application talking to each other.
Now, um, What about window management? Who can talk to that? Sorry.
Sure. That's pretty much on my plate as well, I guess. That is a job mostly happening in Mir. The ambition is that any window manager compositor, which is built using Mir, will implement a standard window management policy. So if you write an application that runs on Mir, it will run on any instance of a Mir server that will exist in the wild. So Unity 8, or if somebody wants to integrate Mir into another compositor, your app will always work exactly the same. So there's a good specification document, I think it's being worked on, and we'll start implementing it. I believe some portions of it are being implemented already in Mir. So as time goes on, that will get more and more powerful, and these features then in the sort of Qt Mir and Unity 8 side, will take that policy and use it to have window management working properly. So this is still a work in progress. We have some basic things working now. We need to add more power, really. At the moment, we've been mainly focused on phone and tablet, so desktop features are slowly creeping in.
Now, window management in X seems to be, it's a big bucket in itself. Are we trying to replicate that one-to-one, or just like taking what's needed to have stacked menus and all the weird GIMP floating windows and whatnot? Like, what's the complexity that we try to replicate?
It's probably not going to be too trivial. Window management is complex. Things like managing focus and managing positioning of windows. There's a lot of interested parties, say, interested in where does this window get positioned. The client wants to position its window in a particular place, but the window manager might have a different idea about that. So there's a bit of a conversation there. The window management should win out, but it should also respect the client's ambitions. With regards to focus, I think the design of Mir is a big win in that respect, because the X architecture, there was an X server, and then there's a separate process that was doing the window management, and there was no security policy, and any app could do anything it wanted and ask it anything of the X server. So any application could rise itself to the front and steal focus. Mir doesn't allow that to happen. The window manager compositor is in Mir, so it will be the one that will be saying what has focus now, what has focus next, and that should be a lot easier then to design around. So in that respect, things will be a lot easier. Like the concept of focus stealing prevention should be a hell of a lot easier than it is in the Mir world, or sorry, in the X world. In the Mir world, I don't anticipate it to be too bad.
Okay.
And then there's just the different types of surfaces, like context menus. They will be positioned relative to their parent window. There will be other things like toolbars, where will they be positioned, toolboxes, and then some windows may have nice graphical effects around them, so they will need some specific rules of their own. But so there's complexity there, but I don't anticipate it to be the nightmare that exists in the X world.
Okay. So we just got a gentle reminder to look at IRC questions, and our friend Brad from the kernel team is really eager to get his kernel development going on Unity 8. So he was asking, like, when is it ready for developer? And there was a question on IRC for those that haven't read the backlog or are just watching the video. So what set of applications? And then I think for developer, in Brad's view, it's Chrome as a browser, a terminal, Mumble, Mods, and WeChat. So I think then essentially Nick helped us distill it down to browser and the terminal, and I think you could use it today already, but it's full screen right now. So I think that's the missing window management piece that we've just been discussing. But I think definitely for the 1510 cycle, it should be a goal that we have that windowed mode. And I think Mike has a demo later today even showing the first implementation of that. So if that's good enough for you as a developer, browser and a terminal in a windowed mode, I think we're almost there. Then you can argue, of course, how good that terminal app is versus whatever console terminal app you were using. But I think in the first step it's there. It will be there for 15.10.
I think we need at least things like Alt Tab to be working for developers to be happy with the system.
I'm on that.
It should be noted that many GTK applications work reasonably well right now in Mir. The difficulty is any application that really relies on proper window management, they're kind of broken as yet. So when proper window management gets implemented, I expect many Qt applications and many GTK applications will just work.
Okay, now Brett is adding
Giant
on top.
star asterisk, but I expect good things to happen by then.
So I think another big aspect is, and that Brett just, I take it as a tongue-in-cheek, is of course a tongue-in-cheek question is like, so multi-monitor support on binary drivers. So binary drivers, we're still working with the vendors. As you can read in the press, they're redoing their drivers, and we should be coming to a common platform there in a reasonable time frame. Not sure if it's 15.10 or a little bit later. But multi-monitor support, where do we stand there?
Well, this is for me also. It's something I have code which makes it work. We need to add that code and then design Unity 8 to use multi-monitor correctly. Unity 8 for now is single monitor. It's the way it was designed. So we need to expand it, we need to make it aware of multiple monitors, and then window management will of course also care about multi-monitor case as well and positioning of windows. So the basics can be implemented probably in about a month, but in order to make it work well, that will take more time.
Okie dokie. And then I think we're almost caught up on questions. Sandwich had a question regarding starting the music app from the terminal, but I think that was already answered on IRC. If not, Sandwich, ping again on IRC. Cool. Okay, so I think, Sherry, you've been mostly now addressing immediate gaps as part of the first discussion we had with Chris, making legacy apps work. Is there anything more that's interesting to our users from your on your side of the turf, of the fence? Unity 8, Mir, that you're aware of that's coming this cycle that you haven't already mentioned?
I pretty much mentioned everything. Implementing proper desktop window management is priority 1. Priority 2 is proper multi-monitor support.
Mm-hmm.
I think once we plug those two issues, it will make Unity 8 properly usable for people day to day.
Right.
So those are the two big jobs on my plate.
And then Ubuntu Fun DE was just asking if Unity 8 will support clickable notifications. It does already now. I'm not sure if we have any design directions to change our quote-unquote snap decisions from what we have on the phone to between the phone and the desktop have two different designs. I don't know, Mike or Jerry, do you know?
Yeah, so far I'm not aware of any change in direction, so at least in the first iteration I'm pretty sure it will look like the same as it's on the phone right now, which means you can flick them away. Right now, well, that's probably we're trying to get away a bit with flicking by mouse because that's really not user-friendly, so that might change a bit. But in general, yes, we have notification buttons in them. They are interactive.
It will be interactive. Okay. That's what I was hoping for. All right. Then let's see. I hope this answered your question, Ubuntu Fun. Sandwich again. How can we test Unity 8 on Ubuntu 15.10? So as we've said so far, yesterday. We had the desktop next image that we use as a playground to test all those new desktop technologies. With the advent of Snappy now, we're going to stop desktop next and start another image that will incorporate those phone-inspired or technologies, desktop technologies that we started on the phone, so Unity 8 and Mir. And then also incorporate Snappy on that image. So it will be Snappy based, and it should be up hopefully in the next month or so. And then it's an image you can just install or put on your test laptop and give Unity 8 a shot there.
I think right.
Go ahead.
I think right now you can also, if you have a Vivid desktop, you can apt-get install Unity desktop session Mir and select it from the login manager. Your mileage may vary there because it's pretty early stages, but for giving it a test, it should work.
That's right. That's a good point. Ubu Lifehacker is asking how Unity in a desktop mode would handle scopes. Now that's a question that I'm curious about myself. So will the scopes be the desktop in terms of like what we knew as wallpaper, or how is that supposed to be working?
I'm afraid I did not get an answer from design about that yet. I've been asking it, but we're not entirely sure. One thing that's coming up is we want to have some sort of desktop application which would allow something like conky widgets. Also on that there will be a separate session later today. I think the community team might know more about it. But yeah, short answer is we're not entirely sure yet how this works.
I think what we've demoed at MWC at least, right? So everything that you've seen, so when you did the conversions from a tablet to single window full screen mode to desktop mode, which was multi-windowed mode, I think there was just a background, right, like a quote-unquote wallpaper. And I think that might change with the desktop app that you just mentioned, where you could then have fun stuff on it.
Yeah, the current wallpaper is just something I've put there to get away with a huge black area.
Oh yeah.
That's not something I've tested so far.
Yeah. All right. Click Ubuntu Fun.de again. Click notifications. If you click on a notification on the desktop, it will bring up the application. It does on the. I think it depends, but it does on the phone right now, right? For some circumstances, like accepting a call is sort of a prominent example there. And so I think there will be as they are interactive, then that I guess would be a design decision to go that route. But I wouldn't see why we wouldn't do that. All right, Cherry, question for you. Does the multi-monitor support code mentioned support different DPI? Like, can you have two monitors with different DPIs?
The plan is yes. So if you have a small resolution monitor or laptop plugged into a really high DPI screen, Unity 8 will intelligently scale the content on your big screen so your fonts are still readable there compared with the small pixels on your other screen. So yeah, we will do that.
Yeah. Okay. Then Ubu Lifehacker has a question about whether we will officially announce this, and saying that the blogosphere says, it's not quite on the same page about what we're saying here. I would have to ask you to define this. If you want to follow up on IRC, that would be great. Sandwich is asking when I will be able to install and run SuperTux 2, like an SDL2 game. I think that's a question. Yep, Trevino's already on it. Do you want to talk about that, Trevino or Chris? For people that are not reading the IRC stream later on. but just watch the video.
Yeah, so right now we have native SDL 1.2 and SDL2 support for the Mirror backend. So any games that support that should run natively on Mirror. So all we meaning somebody, can make a snap of those games and be able to install it, and then it should just run. I don't think anyone has done that yet, so contributions are welcome.
Yeah, I think that's a good way actually to get into, get your feet wet with Snappy, because that just says framework right there, So if you're interested, want to learn more about Snappy and the higher skills of snappifications and snap packaging, I think get in touch with us, and we're happy to assist you in getting that started. Okay. Seems like we're running out of questions on IRC. Mike, do you want to use this as a little teaser for your session, for your show and tell later on, and just tell people what cool things you're going to show? In a way it doesn't steal your thunder for later, but we have a lot of interest here, and then there's, I think, a really cool session later on, so it might be good, worthwhile sharing what's coming.
Yeah. So yeah, the two things I've prepared is once my Nexus 7 tablet here, which will switch from stage mode into windowed mode when you connect the mouse or input devices. Pretty much what we've seen already from Will's video on YouTube shortly before the MWC. And then the second thing I want to showcase is I'm right now working on an alt-tab implementation, which looks sort of similar to the right edge swipe on the phone, animations. So yeah, we've got some work in progress there, and I will demo that a little bit. That's mostly what I've planned.
All right, cool. So looks like we're good on questions on the IRC. Sorry, I have a little bit too much hardware. Mike or Nick, can you wrap up? We have my son is sleeping right out and needs some attention right now. Sorry. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. So if there's not any other questions, so personally, from my perspective, I probably fall in the same perspective as Brad, which is to say, a browser and a terminal will probably do me. So that's wonderful to hear that will, as I said, it's really close as it is, and that can happen. So internally, are you guys planning on dog fooding Unity 8, and at what point do you anticipate that some of you guys' teams might start running it for yourselves?
I've actually run it quite a bit. I do a lot of fringe development work on it, but obviously it's not ready for prime time. But if we get some of these apps up, I'll probably use it more, like email client, IRC, things like that. So if we can get at least the X legacy apps framework in place and the infrastructure there, I think I would probably start to use it more, and I think that would be a goal, at least for some of us on our team. My team is actually the Unity 7 maintenance team, so it'd be kind of ironic, but that would be good. It'd be fun.
And our boss Rick actually was gutsy enough to put out the challenge for himself to take that type of desktop to one of the quarterly reviews, like the QBRs, where the executives of the meetings are getting together every quarter and just do everything that he has to do there. So high-profile stuff. That's on that Unity 8 stage. So I'm curious to see how that goes. right. I thought there was one more question coming in on IRC. And again, sorry for the disruption, but again, boy is sick, wife was handling him. I had to tackle the girl. So recording, screencasting, question from MM Sandwich. I think we have a way to screen grab. I think it works okay on the phone. I think it will work way better on the desktop, just because you have a little bit more compute power and RAM, higher bandwidth. I think we should probably just blog about that soon after. It's a command line tool. There's no UI as far as I'm aware of right now.
I think there's the blog post about that already somewhere.
Is this just a mere screencast tool? Is that what
Yeah.
you're speaking of?
So Uber Lifehacker has a question and maybe some recommendation whether the demo that Mike was advertising isn't actually fueling the confusion. I think, with all the innovations that we do at Canonical, you always have to separate the stream of demos and proof of concepts and all that stuff versus what's actually in the product, and in that context, product being the distribution. So it might fuel the confusion. I think one feedback that I'm taking away from your questions is like to follow up and set the record straight for a blog post or so, and just give a perspective as to what the roadmap is for convergence. So give me a week or so, and we'll probably address that. Let's see. Sandwich. Are we going to have a TV HTPC mode in Unity 8? The 10-foot UI. I don't think there's currently a plan for that. I think we want to address the desktop first as the first big use case, because that will get us most of the users on. Technically, I think Unity 8 is totally capable of supporting such a mode. It's a matter of doing it. And I think, again, contributions are welcome. If you have interest in that mode, we can definitely assist you in doing that, getting some design feedback as how this could look like. So, all right. Cool. All right. Seems like no current questions in the queue. Let's give it another minute or so to just catch up on the live stream to YouTube lag, and then I think we're in a position where we can actually wrap. Regarding dog fooding, I think you brought it up, Nick, while you helped me cover my screaming daughter. So personally, I have a love and hate relationship with the Dell XPS 12 that I'm on right now, and I will definitely make it my snappy test bed, so I don't have to use it on my daily work. But on there, once I have everything that I want to try with Snappy done, I want to run this as a Unity 8 desktop. My work, I was just telling somebody else the other day, what I use is a browser. I need Chromium, and I need a chat window. That's what I need to accomplish my job, 80% of the times. So dog fooding is really, quite within arm reach for me. I'm okay if I have to switch even between full screen sized applications for a while. Cool. I think on that note, if there's no other feedback on the channel.
Actually, it's a good question. You got me thinking, because I do the same, Ollie, on my touchscreen laptop. It's sort of the test bed for this, and I typically run everything full screen, but got many workspaces. So that's a good question. What do we know about workspace support? Is that something that's coming?
I don't know. I would have to look at Mike or Cherry, who might have more recent design updates on that.
I don't know how much design likes the concept of workspaces. There tends to be pushback against it, but most of us like the concept. So I think there's one of those issues where there's a bit of developers want it, no users don't. So like in the Unity 7 right now, workspace, the concept is kind of hidden until you enable them, and then they're there. So I kind of expect we'll probably do the same thing to keep both sides of the argument happy.
Yeah. So I think that meets what I expected. Not having any details. It's a feature in Unity 7. It's widely used, you know. So it might not be the number one feature the team is going to tackle, but I think it's a capability that you would expect from a modern desktop. Okay, then another question comes up. Ubuntu Fun DE is the browser, and I assume that's the browser app, planned to replace Firefox on desktop? I think the answer at this point is no. I think we will have to look hard on the Unity 8 desktop as to what will be the default browser. But I think the browser app right now just lacks, has a feature gap between Chromium and Firefox. So it's not a definitive answer, but my gut feel tells me it's probably not a full-time replacement for Firefox. But we don't have Will here. There's always the discussion as to what's the default browser, and I don't know where we are in that discussion right now. Uber Lifehacker says, you guys rock in answering all those questions. Thank you. Good positive feedback, always appreciated. Sandwich. Are there any plans for Unity 8 plugins? You want to write your own Windows switcher for your own Unity 8 mode? I don't think that's a plan right now. It's kind of hard, we spend a lot of time and resources and brain juice in making a coherent design, and that's really what enables convergence, right? To have a design that's consistent between all the different form factors. And so opening up that plugin interface that you were talking about will then put Unity in a position where it would work well for you, but it doesn't have the look and feel of what Unity really is supposed to show and how it's supposed to work. So I think at this point we don't have plans going down that route. Another question, follow up as to what the plans are for supporting Firefox natively on Mir Unity 8. I think for now we'll go through the container XMe route for that. The underlying toolkit is big. It seems like the enablement is easier through what we call legacy X support rather than enable the toolkit in itself. We get way more bang for the buck if we enable something like GTK compared to Sewell. Because there's way more applications on GTK out there. Firefox, however, being Firefox, Thunderbird, that whole family of apps, being rather important on the desktop, I think we'll just have to see how well they behave and how well the containers work for those applications. Assuming even if they are not default, they might still be installed afterwards by users, and we want to make sure that experience is good. Okay. All right. So yet another time. We're at the bottom of the question queue. I'm running out of chit-chat topics to wait for questions. Guys in the chat and the Hangout, do you have anything else, conversational pieces to give our audience on IRC some more time, or are we calling it a wrap for now for reals?
I've got one other pipe dream question, I suppose.
Yeah.
I love the window management in Unity 7, being able to snap and move windows around, which is a Compass plugin. Since we sort of were talking about plugins, how advanced do you think the window management will be? I mean, that's more of a longer-term plan. Obviously, at first, we want to just be able to resize and move things around. But going forward, we're going to be able to snap windows, resize them, put them into corners, that sort of thing.
So, considering, and this is sort of a tongue-in-cheek answer, that the window management spec has been worked on since day one of Mir. It's going to be well thought through. After 3 years, you would expect that. But I think the reaching parity of what you know today, and again, Compass plugins, right? That was one of the reasons actually, like Compass having all those plugins that might work or not depending on stage of the moon is kind of why we said screw it, we want to get out of that and want to have something that's consistent. So I wouldn't expect to reach parity there anytime soon. And again, extensibility is something we don't really have on our roadmap yet. And it's a question whether we will ever consider that as a feature. For the reasons I mentioned earlier, there's lots of thoughts going into a design that allows for conversions, and any sort of extensibility would put that convergence experience at risk. Alrighty, lexicon. Oh wait, let me switch windows for a second. There's 3 more questions. Have there been any formal conversations with Mozilla, Google, Microsoft with regards to Mir snappy versions of their apps? I can answer that partially, I think. So when we started Mir, we were obviously reaching out and talking to the big players, and I think this is the group you're trying to address, to see what support we need, what's the interest in jumping onto that, enabling that technology. So I think from a Mir perspective, I can answer that and say, yes, I'm not aware that in the context of Mir we'd ever talk to Microsoft. But since Microsoft is now choosing Ubuntu to demonstrate their new technologies at the Build conference, maybe there's an opportunity to have that conversation. But on a more serious note, so whenever we do a big technology, we try to not just do it and throw it at the wall and see what sticks, but we always, with technologies of the scope of Mir and Snappy, we always get backing from our technology partners. So that's just, the sane thing to do, smart thing to do. JD Rose is asking the performance penalty for running in legacy apps in a container. I don't know, Chris or Trevino or somebody else, can you talk to that?
For non-OpenGL apps, I would expect it to you would not be able to tell at all. I've been told with 3D OpenGL that there shouldn't be much of a performance hit, if any. But I have no experience with that, so that's been my experience.
Short of drivers, it's kind of hard to tell at this point. From an architecture perspective, we're doing measurements right now that try to minimize all the penalties to make sure that the architecture doesn't introduce unnecessary penalties. There's obviously something in an additional penalty in there, but we do what we can to minimize that. And then as soon as we get those drivers, we'll do a big round of measurements and address whatever gaps we have. Lexicon is asking, so what's the final verdict as to the user experience in MIA Unity by 1604? So as I said earlier, feedback we got here is that the blogosphere is not quite in agreement as to what it will be. I think we threw out a lot of ideas in this session, and I committed to give an update via blog, either myself or through the team. In general, for my expectation for Unity and MIA is that you have a workable desktop experience by 1604 with support for your top 5 or top 10 apps. That on an x86 platform. Ubu Lifehacker. It's asking how the UI will transition between, so like what's the transition, what's the animation when we change modes? I don't know, Cherry or Mike, that sounds like a question for you guys.
Yes. So right now there is no real animation. It's just gonna get black and, well, just one frame switch, and then you'll have it in windowed mode or back in stage mode. However, I'm right now also trying to refactor that code a bit to be more flexible and to be able to allow some animated transition in there. Not exactly sure how it will look like. Have still to speak with design about it, but I've been thinking about it, and we will consider it, I think.
Right. So Ubuntu Fun is asking about app data sync. It's not a feature, and every Unity will support that. It's not really a feature of the desktop, of the shell. That's where you will see it. It's a feature in the platform. I have to admit, I'm not entirely sure what our plans are there, but considering that this is just something people expect to work, I would be surprised if we wouldn't have it on a backlog. Would have to follow up specifically to see where that's at. Okay, we have like 1 minute left, and there's the last question from Sturmflut. Whether Unity 8 is going to change to support Vulkan, the OpenGL successor. That's a question, I don't know. Cherry, do you know any plans of that?
There are no plans because Vulkan is still under development, and when graphics drivers implemented, that'll be another good few years. So yes, changes will have to be done. The renderer will have to be rewritten to make use of the Vulkan APIs. Eventually, I don't foresee this happening anytime soon.
All right. Alrighty. Well, Fox on the IRC channel. Appreciate your interest. That was like really good. It's good to see all your detailed questions. I think it was very encouraging for us to see how well appreciated our work is. And with our, I mean those guys in the Hangout. So appreciate you guys taking the time. Guys on the Hangout, thanks for helping me answering all those questions. Thanks for letting people into our plans a little bit. And then there's a follow-up session from Chris later today, I believe.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
At, I want to say 1400 UTC. No, not 1400. 1600.
Right. So follow up tomorrow, 1600 UTC, and then Mike Zanetti is going to show some more convergence demos today at the show and tell session. So be there and enjoy it. Have fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.